Hello, everyone. Brian with Kingdom to Connect. I was actually in Luke 22 this morning, basically from about verse 19 down to 38, and thought it'd be good. Finally had some time to sit down and thought I would do a video and just speak from the heart. Been letting these scriptures roll around in me this morning, today, and I think there's some really good stuff here and just want to share it with you. But in 19 and 20, basically they're sitting down at communion with one another, or what we would call communion, right? He broke the bread, gave it to them, said, "This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." Same thing, took the cup. "This is poured out for you as the new covenant in my blood." So a very deep, very intimate moment. They had been through a lot together. They had stood by his side. Of course, there had been a lot of messiness and learning, a lot of lessons taught, a lot. They had shared a lot of life together up to this point. But after that, Jesus quickly gets into, "Behold, the hand of the one betraying me is with mine on the table." And so they began to discuss among themselves, well, who's going to do this? And then you can imagine as they're sitting around talking to one another and trying to figure out what's our Lord talking about here? What's going to happen? Who's going to do this that he's talking about? Which one that sits among us is going to do this, is going to betray him? And as conversations go, that begins to move its way towards, well, which one of us is the greatest? Which one of us is the greatest? Which one of us is going to accomplish the most? Which one of us is going to have more of the spotlight, more of the recognition? Which one of our names are going to be remembered the most? Of course, Jesus hears them talking like this. And here they're just coming off of breaking the bread and drinking of the cup, and such an intimate moment. And I just think about Jesus. I think about his heart towards them, towards me, towards you. I think about the depth that is him, that is going on in his thoughts towards them in that moment. And to see the conversation shift like this, I think about what are the things that he could have said to them. He could have really chastised them and gotten after them for coming off of a moment like that and letting the conversation go in such a, I might say, an inappropriate way. And inappropriate is probably not the right word, but just, it's kind of like when you're having such deep feelings towards someone, and then your time with them or their reaction towards what you are doing, what you're trying to put forth in that time together, and those intimate moments together, they just take that and it just goes off in a direction that completely kills the moment. You're feeling such depth towards them. You're wanting such wonderful things for this person or for these people, and then they just take it and they just don't get it. And they just take that time, those moments, in a direction that it just completely derails everything. How frustrating that can be, how that could just really break your heart and maybe bring up feelings inside of you like, are they ever going to get it? Are they ever going to understand? Maybe feelings like, why am I wasting my time with these disciples, with this person? I really don't know exactly what was going on in his mind and his heart at that moment. Maybe some of those thoughts were coming up. But he hears what they're saying, and he gets in to a different conversation. And he says, for who is greater, the one who reclines at the table or the one who serves? And before that, he says, who is the greatest among you must become like the youngest, and the leader like the servant. So in their culture, the youngest is most definitely beneath the elder. The one who is older has more experience, more wisdom. That was the greatest. That person, the elder, the oldest, that was greater than the younger in their culture. And so he's telling them, you need to become like the youngest. Not have your eyes set on the elder, becoming the elder. Not just focused on that and thinking about that being the greatest, but focus on, put your energy towards becoming like, having a character like, living in such a way as the youngest lives. And instead of thinking of being the leader, being the most powerful, being the one that everybody's going to look toward and have all the recognition, he's like, don't set your mind on those things. Don't have that kind of mindset. But instead, I want you to have the mindset of a servant. The past month, I have been in the process of trying to see what my next phase of life is going to look like career-wise. And so I'm making steps, and I did get my real estate license, and I'm actively working that. But I'm also looking at other things, just trying to use wisdom. And I bring that up only because as I think about how Jesus is talking to them about having the mindset of a servant, I recall looking at different companies and in the advertisements saying that they use a excuse me, a servant leadership model. And so even businesses, right, in our culture and in our time, see the value of that, see the value of a servant leadership model. Now, do we always practice that? Do we really understand what that looks like? No. No, we don't. But we know that there's value there. But yeah, he goes on and he says, for who's greater, the one who reclines at the table or the one who serves? He's asking them that. Jesus asking them, who do you say is the greatest? Is it the one who reclines at the table? and is being waited on, and people are bringing them food, bringing them drink, making sure that their needs are met, well, I think normally our response to a question like that would be, well, yeah, the one reclining at the table is the one who is the greatest. They have put in the time. They have put in the work. They've been engaged in the grind, right? They're just pushing, going, working, climbing. They've climbed to the top, right? And so, yes, they're the greatest. They've done all of that. So they're worthy of that. They deserve that. That's what we're all longing for, right? That's what we're all trying to do. Get into that position to be the greatest. Maybe we don't look at it exactly like that. But I think that's ingrained in most of us, isn't it? It's that grind, work hard, do the best we can. Those aren't bad things, don't get me wrong. Those aren't bad things at all. Work is a good thing. And getting up and trying every day, pushing ahead, good things. But it's easy, I think, for us to start becoming fixated on that. And it transitions from something that is a good thing to something that really becomes detrimental to us very easily. It's like a line in the sand. It's just so easy to step over it, and it just becomes unhealthy and ungodly so quickly. And so it's good to think about these things, I think. Well, it is. It's good. It's good to step back and really give thought to these things and ask ourselves, well, where am I at right now? Am I on this side of the line? Am I on that side of the line? Where's my heart? Where's my mindset? And Jesus goes on and he says, is it not the one who reclines at the table? So I can imagine he's looking at him. He's asking him this question. Is it the one reclining that's great? Is it the one that's serving that's great? And then probably a dramatic pause. Is it not the one who reclines at the table? Scanning the room. Anyone? Right? And people are probably like, well, yeah. And then he goes on to say, but I am among you as the one who serves. Again, just imagine the weight of that time, sitting around a table intimately, right? Probably in a very cozy room. He's lovingly poking, trying to get them to open up their thinking. You're fixated on these things, greatness and recognition and being well known and having your name remembered and all this stuff. You're fixated on these things. But what should you be fixated on? What really matters? They're thinking, this is great. This defines greatness. This is what looks like greatness. Grinding and achieving and arriving and becoming. But as he does, he takes them in this whole different direction. But I am among you who serves. He is the one that is coming in with complete humility. He is the one that internally, I think maybe a good way to put it is, what can I do for you? Where are you at? What's going on in your mind? What's going on in your heart? What are you struggling with? How can I help you? As I've listened to different real estate coaches, there's one in particular, Ricky Carruth, on YouTube. I really like his approach. There's others as well, but very dynamic guy. And he's often coming from that perspective of, how can I help you right now? What do you need? What's the best way that I can be of value to you? Those types of qualities require someone that is genuinely interested in listening, really hearing, really desiring a genuine, intense curiosity as to what is going on in your life, and can I be a part of your journey? Can I find a place in your life to support you, to help you? Do we need to think through some things? Do I just need to be available and really give you 100% of my focus so that you can get out what you need to get out? And maybe I'm not, maybe I am, maybe I'm not here in this moment to give you solutions, to give you answers, but to listen as you are getting out what you need to get out and working through your thinking out loud. I don't know. There's, I guess, so many different ways we could take that. But what I'm trying to get at is just a genuineness, a humility, a desire to serve. Really thinking of that other person above yourself. I'll tell you some other things that come up in me all the time when I think about things like this is, well, anytime I start going down these roads and thinking about these truths in the Bible, in how it applies to life and things, is just, how does that practically play out? What does that really look like in my life? And how do I get there? Those are, I don't know about you, but those are hard questions. And the answers to those questions don't always sink in easily. They don't always come easily. And in the years that I've gone down that road of asking those questions, and I don't necessarily like this conclusion, but it sure seems like the more things you have going on, the more stuff you have, the bigger your plate and the more things that are on that plate, it's extremely humbling, because I more and more have just come to realize that the more stuff that is on my plate and the bigger my plate is, and the more that I'm grinding and trying to accomplish this and that and try to get here and get there and run and go, and I've got these goals and those goals, and I'm trying to accomplish all these things and trying to be the husband that I need to be. I'm trying to be the father that I need to be. I'm trying to be the provider that I need to be. I'm trying to follow Christ like I should. I'm trying to to fill all of these roles, wear all of these hats, be a business owner and build this and do that. And it's just like, my gosh, it's tough. And it just, but I go back to what I said before. I just went down that road, which is, well, I just don't have the capacity that I thought I did. And we're going to get into that here in just a minute, but I'm not as ready maybe as I thought I was in these things. I can't quite do what I thought I could do. My success of what I envisioned to be success is not what I planned for it to be. And as my heart for the Lord and following Him and longing to be with Him and really be a student, can I say, a student of His ways, really being a friend of Christ, having and taking the time to just be with Him, to sit with Him, to give Him time, to give Him the energy, my mental and physical resources, I guess, in my life. It all keeps coming back to, over the years, Brian, your plate is too big. You've got too much on your plate. And when you've got all of these other things going on, it's hard to give what I really long to give to Him. Because it's like these things are pulling at me. And it's going to keep pulling at me. And time has shown me that it will continue to pull at me, at you. These things don't have to be bad things. It's just things. A pear tree, I think of a pear tree because I grew up with a pear tree at my grandma's house. Used to love eating pears off of that. But a pear tree is going to keep producing pears. When it's alive and it's being nourished, right? It's got roots. It's being nourished. It's alive. It's going to keep producing fruit. That's what it does. And I say that because all the other things that I have going on in my life, that you may have going on in your life, as long as you are pouring life, nourishing the roots of those things that are on your plate, on my plate, well, they're going to keep producing. And that requires resources to keep those things going. And the more of those things requiring our resources, I don't know about you, but for me, that's resulted in my time with Him not always becoming what I want it to be, not always being what it needs to be. The time that I really do long to spend with Him, I've made secondary when it needs to be primary. So after Jesus says, "But I am among you as the one who serves," and then he says, "You are those who have stood beside me in my trials." I mean, how loving is that, I think? Here they are arguing about who's going to be the greatest, who's going to be famous, whose name is going to be remembered, who's going to do the greatest things. Spotlight, spotlight, spotlight. They're all into that. And he's talking about being a servant, a servant's heart, a servant's mindset. I could just see Jesus looking around the room and going, you are the ones who have stood by me in my trials. And just as my Father has granted me a kingdom, I grant you, that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and you will sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. So he's, I think, lovingly and gently trying to teach them and show them, oh, my brothers, right? Greatness is not how the world looks at greatness. Greatness in my kingdom is not that way. Greatness is humility. Greatness is less of you. Greatness is truly a servant's heart, slowing down, probably shrinking the plate, making primary what needs to be primary, being with him, giving him your time. And when we do that, it changes us. I think about really the reality, I guess I might say, is who we spend time with. The most time with is who we become. The environments that we put ourselves in is what we become. I think of just kind of being grafted in. Maybe this is a bad analogy, be like a branch being grafted into another tree. But the idea, the picture, the image is that where we spend most of our time, we begin to pick up those traits, those cultural and behavioral traits and values, and it shapes us and molds us. And so he's trying to teach them that that's where their focus needs to be. That's where true life and lasting value is found. We think that those things are found in being great, in having lots of money and success and achieving all these wonderful goals. And again, I can't say enough times, those things in and of themselves are not bad. That's not the focus or the intent of my heart here today talking about this. Focusing on that aspect of it is not what this is about. Sure, we would all love to have as much money as we can have. I get it. I'm no different than you in that regard. But he's trying to teach them that's not the focus at all. Spend time with me. Be with me. Learn my heart and my ways. I am a servant. I am here to serve. I am here to listen. I am here to be your foundation, to support you, to be your refuge, to cover over you, to love you, and I'm calling you. I'm trying to show you that you were created to fit into me. Become like me. Be yoked with me. That is what's best for you and me. And we have such a tendency, I have such a tendency to fight that right in the flesh. The scripture is very clear that those who are in the flesh cannot please God. But being in the flesh can look a lot of different ways. Just like how we define greatness, how we define success, doesn't mean that we can't or shouldn't be successful in this world. But are you going about it based on how you define success, how I define success? Is it grinding and climbing and producing? And is that the primary objective? Is that the right road to get you to success? It's just questions, things to think about, things to set before the Lord. Lord, is my mind right in that? Is my heart right in that? What do you think about that, Father? That should be our heart, I think, and our attitude towards those things. Those are huge things. And it's massively important that we approach that in the right way. Because how we approach it is going to determine our course, right? It's going to set us on a path which is going to build momentum and propel us forward. So we need to really use wisdom in how we think about those things. And I think this is cool because he says, you do this, understand, grab a hold of, really let this sink in, guys, what I'm talking about here. Understand my character, the essence of what is going on in me, who I am, and I'm calling you to this as well, to die to yourselves and to come serve with me. That's essentially what he's saying. And he's telling them, listen, I hear what you're saying now, and we know, of course, reading and looking back on it, it wasn't the right heart that they were going about this, but he's saying, you have stood by me in my trials. Almost like, I know deep down you get this. You've stood by me. You know the value. Just like those businesses that write the advertisements of, we have servant leadership, upper management, and that sort of thing. Get it. But then find themselves derailed and going off into these tangents that are the opposite of that. It kind of seems like what he's doing with the disciples here. Yet you're talking about all this stuff that's so opposite of me, guys. You're going off on these tangents that are not my character at all. But let me remind you, you have stood with me in my trials. I know your heart. I know that you know that what I'm telling you is right. You know this. He's reminding them, and he's saying, my Father has granted me a kingdom, and I grant you that you will eat and drink at my table. and you will sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes. So they're going to be doing important things. But how they get there and the heart, the mindset by which they get there, foundational. Then he gets into the next part. Simon, Simon, behold, Satan has demanded permission to sift you like wheat. And then he says, but I have prayed for you, that your faith may not fail. And you, when once you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. Huge. Jesus, but I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith will not fail. He didn't pray that it wouldn't happen to him, or really for any of the disciples. Satan had actually asked permission to sift all the disciples as wheat. But Peter was representative because Peter was bold and he jumped out there and, Peter. We know Peter. Always rushing in, always, I will do this, I will do that. Bold. Not knocking that. It's just Peter. Many of us have those same qualities. And so he put himself in that position of really being representative. And so that's why Jesus, I believe, turned to him and spoke to him directly like that. I have prayed for you that your faith may not fail. Now, Peter did fail, right? He denied Jesus 3 times, and throughout Scripture denied him more times than that in different situations. But I keep trying. I fail, I get up, I keep trying. I try to figure out where I failed. I ask those hard questions. Where's my mindset? Where's my heart? What happened? Why didn't I handle that like I should have? Peter, no different. Yeah, he slipped up and fell down. He failed in that moment. But ultimately, his faith did not fail. Because Jesus said, when once you have turned again. Gosh, that's so encouraging to me. It's like he's saying, I love you, Peter. I'm praying for you that your faith will remain strong. You are going to have to go through this. This trial is coming. These difficult times are coming, Peter. I can't shield you from that by not having it happen at all. But I'm praying that your faith will hold strong. And that after you have fallen, after you have failed, that you will remember. Remember that you stood by me, Peter. Remember what you know to be true. That is going to come back up in you and is going to strengthen you. And you are going to turn back from that failure. You're going to turn back from how you've fallen. And when you do that, you're going to strengthen others. So, really encouraging. My nose is itching. And as Peter does, he says, Lord, with you I am ready to go both to prison and to death. Peter. And I could just see Jesus looking at Peter, right? And he says, I say to you, Peter, the rooster will not crow today until you have denied 3 times that you even know me. I like that part where Peter says, I am ready. I am ready. I am fit. I am prepared. I'm in a position. I've got this solid foundation. I'm ready to go. I'm at the finish line and I'm set up, and there's nothing lacking. I'm completely ready, Lord. I will go to prison with you. I will die with you. I'm ready. Do you know how many times, as I think on that I've been in that position in my life? I'm ready. I can do this. I can do that. I'm ready. Only to fail. Only to not measure up. Only to fall down and be disappointed and discouraged, and because I found out that, oh gosh, I really wasn't ready. I didn't understand until I got into this position what this was really going to entail, what this was really going to be like. I thought that I made all the measurements. I thought I really considered everything that needed to be evaluated. In my mind, based on what I had, I was ready. But I wasn't. And it hurt. I think it says a lot about all of us. It's like, oh, Lord, thank you for Peter. To be able to look back and see that, gosh, I'm just like him. It's very humbling. And interesting, too, that he says, the rooster will not crow until you've denied 3 times that you know me. I don't know. It's just the whole character and heart and ways of Jesus. It's just always coming through in what he is trying to teach the disciples, us. It's like this simple, basic heartbeat. Know me. Sit with me. Take time with me. Discover my heart. Sit quietly with me. And just wait for me to speak. Things like that. But we, in the flesh, right? We don't look at this as a bad thing. We don't think of it as in the flesh. Well, I got to go. I got these goals. I've got to plan. I've got to achieve. I've got to grind. I've got to push. I've got to accomplish. I've got to overcome. I've got to prove wrong. I've got to do all these things. Guilty. I know best. I know you breathe life into my very lungs, moment by moment. I know that you created me and know what's best for me, but I still know best. And so I'm going to do these other things. I'm going to make these other things primary and of utmost importance, because although I would never admit it and say it like that, I know best. I mean, after all, that's what my actions have shown. I know best. I know what this looks like. I know how this is supposed to play out. I'm ready. I have everything I need in order to be ready. I know that I'm ready. I'm ready to go to prison, even to die. I'm so confident in all these things, right? Just like Peter. But yet, was he ready? No. Not then. There's a process. We're all in process. Which is why we need to be humble, which is why we need to fully understand and work out situation by situation, moment by moment, of what it looks like to be a servant, to live in humility. What does that really look like? In all of these different situations, what does that look like in the goals that we set? What does that look like in the work that we do? What does that look like in all of these different things? Because we think we have it figured out in one area, but then there's 100 other different areas that we really fully haven't worked it out. We don't really understand what that picture looks like. And so we just kind of slop through it, thinking that we're ready, and we're not. Instead of learning to get quiet, sit with Him, and all of these things that come up in all of these different situations, we need to learn patterns. That reminds me of something. Patterns. This just popped into my head, but I was listening to, I don't know, it was something, it was like I was going to watch a YouTube video or something, and it was one of those Tony Robbins advertisements or commercials, probably because I've been off and on listening to different real estate coaches trying to learn the industry and stuff. And came on, and he was talking about all these different businesses that he's built, and it's almost like he was saying, if I remember correctly, the reason basically, I don't want to say anything that's incorrect, but from what I remember of the advertisement, he was saying that it's because he's developed the ability to recognize patterns. And so as I was sitting here just talking about all these different ways that we need to learn to practically walk out what it means to live in the essence and character and humility of Christ Jesus in us, what it looks like in all of these different circumstances, through our goals, through our work, through our relationships, through all of these things, everything that we aspire to. We have to be introspective and ask hard questions and hold ourselves accountable and all of those things, and recognize the patterns that are inherent in each of these things. And those patterns are Jesus. Those patterns are Christ in us. I make it so hard. But it's just His whew, about chokes me up, but it's sorry. It's his character. It's who he is. It's his humility. It's his love. It's his embrace. It's his way in every single thing. And when I remember that, and when I spend time with him, I remember all these wonderful things about him. When I abide with him like I should be doing and not getting off in the flesh, it just becomes so simple. It becomes less about me coming to him to get specific answers to whatever problem I may be having in a particular moment, and it becomes more about, all about just from being with him, I'm able to understand all of these different things so much better, so much more clearly, so much more simply. Because I look at these things and I'm wondering, am I walking this out right? And it becomes more like, well, is he in it? You know him, Brian. You're with him. He's with you. You're really abiding in him. Is he in it? Do you see him in it? In whatever goals you're trying to accomplish and whatever path you're trying to go down, is he in it? Is he right there in it with you? Like, you get what I'm saying? Do you smell him in it? Do you sense him in it? Do you see him in it? Is his character in it? Is that peace that you have when you are so closely walking with him, is that present in it? All of those things. And when I'm living life in that way, it really does all these things that maybe you tend to struggle with, trying to figure out, which direction do I go? How do I accomplish this? What's important? What's not important? It all just kind of, that smoke fades away and becomes clear, because I'm just with him and he's with me and I'm spending time with him. It's this ongoing lifestyle of prayer and just walking with him, looking for him, setting everything before him in all that I do. And it just becomes this immersive lifestyle in the practical, everyday things of life. He's right there. And I either sense him in it with me or I don't. And when I don't, then that pretty well tells me what I need to know. When I know that peace, those qualities that are him, when that aroma that is him is not present in these other things, this often noise in my life, when that's not there, what am I doing? What are you doing? Right? What are we doing? Why? We keep chasing those things. It's not him. He's not in it. His aroma is not infused in it. he goes on and he says, remember when I sent you without a money belt and a bag and sandals? You did not lack anything, did you? And they said, no, Lord, nothing. Well, they were going out in that phase of ministry, right? But now they're moving into a whole different phase of ministry. And he says, but now, whoever has a money belt is to take it, and likewise a bag, and who has no sword is to sell his coat and buy one. And a little further in that last verse, he says, Lord, look, here are 2 swords. And he said to them, it is enough. Was he saying the 2 swords were enough? I mean, let's think about that for a minute. So among all the disciples, if he's really talking about physical swords, and there's 2 swords, if you were really talking about fighting with physical swords, would 2 amongst all of them be enough? And then everybody else has no sword? I don't believe so. I think let's think about what is in line with his character the whole time. For you do not fight against flesh and blood, but against spiritual powers. And so they come at him like I've come at him, and probably you. Here's my plan. Here's what we have. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to achieve and gain and build up. And is that good, Lord? I'm going to do those things. Those are good things, right? And he looks at me after he's poured out all of these spiritual truths of what it means to be a part of his kingdom, and looks at me and smiles and says, Brian, I love you. It's enough. That's enough for today. You'll come back around. You'll hear when you're ready to hear. You'll receive when you're ready to receive. All the treasure has been poured out. He laid out so much just in this short passage right before them. And yes, right then they're still thinking of physical swords. They're still thinking of who's the greatest. They're still just not grasping. But like he said to Peter, when you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. And like Jesus said earlier, you are those who have stood by me in my trials. He knew their heart. And instead of seizing every wrong thing that they said, he knows. He knows us. And he just simply said, it's enough. And I wouldn't be surprised if he said, I love you all. You mean so much to me. It's enough. This is enough for now. So what I try to remember is, Brian, get up. Keep trying. Keep moving forward. Keep asking questions. Sit with him. Give him your time. Really sit and linger. Be mingled with him. Get to really know him. Let him speak. Listen. Take it in. Let it soak. Soaking is good. Okay, well, speaking of it is enough, it is enough. For those that hung on this long, I really didn't expect this to go this long. I hope this ministered to you. This was really special for me. I'm grateful to have had this time just sitting in the presence of the Lord and then being able to invite you along as well. I love you all. I mean it. I pray for you. Father, I just pray for those that may be watching this now. Lord, you know what is going on in the hearts and minds of those that are watching. You know where they're at. You know what they need. You know their progress. I just lift them up to you, Lord, each individual person. I just lift them up to you, Lord. I hold them before you, Father, right now. And I just pray, Lord, that they would go forth in your strength, in your power, learning what it means to walk, to live in humility, to serve you, to submit, to die to self, so that your character, that the essence of who you are, would take root in their lives, and that their lives would be nourished with your life and your power and your love, and that they would become a fountain of your life, of your ways, and go forth a living testimony on fire for you. I pray that their lives would be blessed with your presence. Thank you, Father. Amen. Thank you all. See you again soon.